Welcome back, or if it's your first time, I'm glad to have you here. I'm Matt Fendora, and you're tuned in to the Choose to Live, Love, and Grow podcast, where we journey together toward becoming the best version of ourselves. Using mind, body, heart, and spirit as the anchors of our podcast, join me as we set sail into the depths of self-discovery, unraveling the interconnected layers that shape our growth. If you resonate with today's conversation, consider subscribing to the podcast. Your support means the world to us and ensures you never miss an empowering episode. Welcome back, and thank you for tuning in to another episode of the Choose to Live, Love, and Grow podcast, the podcast all about being the best version of yourself through mind, body, heart, and spirit. Today, I am joined by Alexandra Nunez. Alexandra is a high-performance coach that helps busy professionals to achieve sustainable progress. She was born in Colombia, but has lived in Montreal, Canada for many years now. She was an economist with an MBA, whom previously spent 20 plus years in finance. She's made this career transition to find more fulfillment and pursue her mission, helping people in the area of personal development, which has always been her passion. Some of Alexandra's proudest accomplishments include moving to a new country alone at an early age, obtaining her master's degree, having a successful career in the financial sector, occupying various strategic roles, including strategic planning, transitioning to a new career in coaching, and being a proud mother of two wonderful boys. What makes Alexandra's heart sing? Her family and spirituality. Without further ado, here's Alexandra. How are you doing today?
I'm fine. I'm very well, Matt. Thank you for the invitation.
I'm excited to have you on because I feel like we connect in a lot of ways when it comes to mindset and how do we continue to grow that. So I'm excited to learn from your experience.
Wonderful.
So the first question I have for you is what spurred you to travel at a young age to a new country? And then on top of that, what was that experience like?
Well, the main reason to that move, it was studies. I came with the objective to study languages, English and French at the time. But I was in my early 20s with a mindset of adventure. So for me, it was a lot about discovering a new country, new weather, new people, new languages. So it was in that mindset that I did that change. And if I have to say something, having that mindset helped me to adapt to the new life much easier, because it was positive. I was open. I wanted to discover, so the adaptation was quite easy for me to do at that point.
So when you traveled, were you already familiar with English and French, or was it all like very new to you, struggling with the language?
Well, English, I could get by a little bit. And French, I didn't even know how to say hi in French. So it was a shock, because when I arrived in Montreal, I didn't expect that it was so French.
Mm.
I knew people that spoke French, but when you're walking on the streets and you hear like almost everybody speaking in French and you don't understand anything that they're saying, it was quite a shock. But like anything in life, and this is a perfect example of when you approach things with a growth mindset, anything in life you can learn. And learning a new language at 20 something years old is not the easy thing to do because you're already an adult, but you can do it. It took me time, but I did it. And actually, when I was working in corporate, my job was like 99% in French.
Wow.
Mm-hmm.
So, what tools did you use to actually begin learning these two different languages? Did you learn them both at the same time, or did you focus on one and then the next one?
I focused. I started first with English, because it's something that I was more, I knew better. So I did some courses in English. I became full proficient in English, and once that happened, I started learning French. By when I was studying English, just because, like I said, here you hear the French all the time. You start catching up things and learning a few words, but it was one at a time.
So, for people who are at that older age, your brain is still in development, but how did you navigate, like what techniques did you use to study a new language?
To be honest with you, it wasn't really about any techniques. I took courses at the university. So with the good structure, with the good professors, and then it was really about learning to open up. When you learn a new language, and as an adult, is not easy because you feel like you're a kid again, learning to talk, and you're always exposed to your thoughts about, I'm gonna sound silly, I'm not gonna pronounce it well, I'm not gonna, how can I express? Sometimes it's like even difficult to express what you want to express because you don't have the right word and all these things. So it's like really to break that and do it. You just have to just do it. And when you are in an environment where you're forced to say something, like if you're in a restaurant, you have to order, you're buying something, that's why it's when you do an immersion in the environment, at some point it's like if you don't talk, people, and then, just slowly with that, you start breaking those barriers inside. It's just learning to get comfortable speaking to other people in the language. And one thing that I encounter that is very interesting is because we're always worried about how we're gonna sound, what we're gonna say, but people, and even today, because you could tell that I still have an accent, and I think I'll die with it. People, they find on the other side, people, they see it. Oh, well, you're learning another language, good for you, you have a cute accent, like the approach on the other side is always more welcoming, and we're just like so worried inside us about how we're gonna sound. So it's also, with the help of people, seeing that kindness from other people, it helps, in that journey.
Yeah, I could see that because if people weren't as accepting, you'd feel like you'd want to shut down and stop putting in so much effort. But because they're there supporting you, it makes you, kind of gives you an additional drive. Like, yes, I can do this. And it allows you to just keep pushing through.
Yes, yes, exactly.
So you spent over 20 years in the financial industry. What made you want to get out of that and start pursuing coaching?
You know what? Actually, the right question is, why did I get into finance in the first place? I did. I like you mentioned before. I studied economics, and I went into finance. This was all about, following what I thought I had to do. What I thought society, like it's just following societal rules. It was. I remember. Since back then, it was never clear to me that I wanted to do that. But I had some roles. then information that made me go that way, but it wasn't really conscious. I think I was more following, just kind of a flow all the time,
Mhm.
thinking also about, finance. There's a lot of financial success if you go into that career. So, like following that path, you get a good job, you make money, um, more external rewards
Mhm.
than the internal. And then, it got to the point where you realize that, external rewards is not really what fulfills you in your heart. And that's what made me make the change.
So how long have you been doing coaching?
Since last year, since the summer last year.
Last year.
Mhm.
And you focus specifically on the mind, correct?
Yes, I focus on, I use tools for neuroscience. So it's about learning how your brain works so that you can leverage its potential.
So what are some of the concepts, some of your favorite concepts that you help your clients use?
Well, I think one of the foundational concepts, and it's all the idea about, what we believe, about what beliefs are limiting us, and about our mindset. Everything starts there. you know uh, your actions, your behavior, what you do, what you don't do is determined on what you believe and what you don't believe. So, like, just the example before, I went into finance because at the time I believed that that was what I could do, and that what would give me what I wanted to. So, and it in decisions, but it's like, how we go about our days, the habits and everything. So that's something that I work a lot with my clients, because I think that is the foundation of the rest of the work that we do, that we work about how being productive, how to be focused, how to optimize energy and all that. But everything starts really with what you have in your head.
So what tips do you have for taking a limiting belief that we have and reframing it?
Well, there for in terms of limiting beliefs, there are two main tools that I use, and the first one is um, seeking cognitive dissonance. It's about doing things that are not in alignment with what you believe. So, to give you a very simple example, it's you believe that you're not an organized person. So, and then you live your life in a very disorganized way. Your papers, your desk, your house, everything. So, how to change that? Because that belief about yourself, you can change it to improve. So something very basic is, you can have a goal to make your bed every day, right? So you start making your bed every day. And just by doing that, the act of doing it, it's sending signals to your brain that actually you're organizing.
Hmm.
So then you start changing that belief about yourself of being somebody that is not organized. So you start with little things like that. And usually those little acts, they have a ripple effect. You start organizing your bed, then you say, well, maybe my room too, and it feels, you get the feeling it's nice, it's good. So then you start being more organized in your life. So it's just like it's really starting with tiny gestures, and then they have impact, and by doing that you create this dissonance. So it's like, what I'm doing and what I'm believing, they're not aligned.
Mm,
And the more you do it, the more you start changing your beliefs so that your belief aligns with what you do.
mm,
So that's one tool. There is another tool that I think, for many people actually is very, very impactful. It's embracing emotional discomfort.
mm,
And I think today it's much easier to do this exercise because we have access to so much information, so many stories that they can resonate. So this is really about finding role models, finding stories. That's why sometimes, you have a book that can change your life. It's a story that resonates of somebody that, achieved what we thought it was impossible and they did it. So then you question why you cannot do that too. It makes it, you start opening to that idea that, maybe this person, a young man that came from a poor family that didn't study, and then, he was able to become very creative and, maybe became an artist and so on. So all these stories that touches emotionally, they have a lot of impact in our brain because our emotions dictate a lot, what happens in our brain as well.
mm-hmm. And one thing I want to point out with the emotional discomfort that you shared was that person that we find the story that we resonate with can be anybody. It doesn't have to be a celebrity, an influencer, an author. It could be the person, it could be your neighbor, it could be a family member, it could be anybody who is actually sharing their story because everybody has a story to share and we just don't realize it sometimes.
Exactly, exactly. Any story that really that can resonate with you deeply emotionally, it's a wonderful way to address limiting beliefs. And that's why, social connecting with people and learning about their life, you find many surprises behind everybody's story.
Hmm. So how do we take these two tips on how to remove those blocks of those limiting beliefs? How do we take those and turn those into a consistent growth mindset?
Well, these are the limiting beliefs. So really what we have to do, somebody that wants to do the work, the first step is really to understand what beliefs are limiting them. To acknowledge it's really a work about self-awareness, and then finding things that they could do. So like I said in my example, let's say if your limiting beliefs is about organization, feeling that your life is a mess and you're not organized. So what are the little steps that you can take to start organizing your life, so that then the more you do it, then you believe it's a process that is not like an overnight process, but it's really about doing these things. It's about maybe finding, coming back to the same example, finding stories about somebody that before they had a messy life and then they change, and now they live better, they're successful. So it's identifying and then taking action consistently. It's better small steps every day than trying to do too much. Many people, they stop doing it is because, okay, I have to like reorganize all my house. This is not going to happen overnight. You
Mm,
start small, just make your bed every day for a month, and then maybe the next month you add another task. When it's small, it makes it easier for you to do it. It's about consistency and frequency.
I think the acknowledgement is so important because we can go our whole lives without acknowledging that, let's say we are disorganized. And if we don't acknowledge it, yeah, we might do, like you said, make your bed one time and it have zero effect on you because you never acknowledged the issue to begin with.
Exactly.
So, one of the most important things for people to be successful is to be able to manage their time well. And a lot of times what we do is we get so busy and we think that that's what we have to do to be successful is just say busy, 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 busy. What advice can you give and practical tips on how we can manage our time better to actually not just be busy all the time, but actually be productive more often?
Well, this is actually one of my missions in today's society, like it's all about busyness, and you think that being busy it's equivalent to worthiness or value.
Hmm.
And in the end, it's totally the opposite because you're in many ways you're just busy doing nonsense and not really achieving your goals. And that busyness affects a lot your brain.
Hmm.
It affects it clouds your brain. So the first thing that you have to do to stop those patterns is to really think about what are your goals, what are you want to achieve in life. Let's say if you're studying, what are your goals related to your studies? What are your goals related to personal life? I think for me also, I stress a lot the importance to have balance. So it's not success is not only professional or study or work related. It has to the personal life is also important. So it's identifying what your goals are, and the more clarity you have about what you want in life, the easier we'll get, because this is really what can guide you to establish your priorities. Then, when you have your priorities, you can define what are the tasks that you need to do to achieve those goals, and you have to focus on that. So when you're doing something, let's say, you have a long to-do list, you have to ask yourself, go through the list and ask, is this really contributing to my main goals? If the question is yes, that becomes a priority. If the question is no or I'm not sure, so then really you have to ask yourself, why am I doing this? This is really important. Some things that could be also simplified, but it's really going through that list of things that we think that we have to do and try to eliminate anything that really doesn't contribute to what's important to you, to your main goals. And then structure your day to focus on your priorities. What are the main tasks that you have to do every day to achieve your goals?
How can people find out or establish what their priorities are?
Well, there are many, many different methods to establish priorities. For me, is really you take one goal, you break it into pieces, and all those pieces becomes your priorities in different times, because like if you're breaking, you have a goal in 6 months, for sure in 1 month you have one priority. Let's say if you're writing a book, so then your priority will become, you wanna finish the book in 6 months. So in the first month you said, work chapter one of the month. That becomes your priority in that sense. I think what I usually do is I start before identifying your priorities. It's doing this elimination process to eliminate a lot of stuff, because when you have too many things in your mind is there is fog. You can
Hmm.
think straight. So when you take like a lot of stuff out of the way, then it just becomes easier and more clear to you to see really, okay, yeah, this is important. This is a priority because the priorities is like when and where you do it, right?
Hmm.
So the first step is really eliminating as much as you can what you can eliminate, or there are even things that you can delegate, let's say,
Mm.
anything that you can get out of your way so that you can really focus on what's important. So if you that step, it opens up your mind for more clarity.
Absolutely. I definitely know. I've definitely felt that fog before from doing too many things all at the same time and then being like overwhelmed because you're like, okay, what am I supposed to focus on here? Because I have to do this, I have to do this, I have to do this. And I think what would have helped me out at that time is, like you said, eliminating some of the things like, okay, like don't worry about this, don't worry about this. This is where you focus. If you can delegate that, and it's okay to ask for help. I think that's one thing we struggle with sometimes is we're not really asking for help, and that's a huge solution to that busyness problem that we're creating for ourselves.
Exactly, exactly. Asking for help is huge. And the other thing that I wanted to add is because it's very important to be structured. So, you eliminate, then you start having more clarity about what your priorities are, but also to know when to do things.
Hmm.
Because, I'm not a big fan of having a to-do list, because in the to-do list, you don't know when you're gonna do it, when you have to do it, and how long it's gonna take.
Hmm.
So it's really how you can manage what you have to do within the context of your time. So, maybe today there are some things that you must do, and there are other things there's still a priority, but you can do that Friday, let's say.
Hmm.
So to be able to sequence, properly the different tasks that you have to do within a framework of time, and it's the best way. So your brain loves structure. And if you tell your brain that, Matt, you're gonna do Friday an interview, so then it's already there. He knows when you're gonna do it, so you don't have to keep thinking all the time. Okay, when I'm gonna have time to do this? It's
Hmm.
already placed somewhere in a bucket. So you even stop all this, cognitive load that you have when, oh, I have to do this, I have to do that, I have to do this, I have to do that. That keeps
Hmm.
you stressed all
Hmm.
day long.
So, if you don't use a to-do list, what is the alternative method for prioritizing the tasks that you have?
Yeah, well, my favorite method is time blocking, which is really just putting your task on a calendar, and then you're adding these two variables, which is when you're gonna do it and how long you're giving to that task.
Mhm.
So let's say you have to write something, and you say, Thursday from 9 to 11, I'm just going to dedicate that time to that. That is the best way to go about. And, with all the tasks that you have.
And I think one other thing on top of that, when you said writing and putting that block of 9 to 11, I think it's also about not putting so much pressure on yourself to come up with a certain amount. Let's say if you're writing, let's say you're writing a book, if you're putting 2 hours into it, you don't have to come up with, 3 chapters. It could be, hey, I'm just going to put as much effort as I can into this, block out the distractions and just focus on this, see what I come up with, and then move on from there.
Well, normally, what I recommend, let's say for that example, is to set a clear goal about what you're going to write, but it has to be something that is reasonable.
Mm.
So let's say you're not gonna write a chapter in 2 hours, but you could say, you know what, I'm gonna make an effort to write 5 pages.
Mm,
Because if you don't give, like, I stress this a lot, your brain needs instructions, and the more instructions you give it, it's easier for him. So if you tell him, Thursday at 9, you're gonna do writing from 9 to 10. But okay, so what you're gonna write? What is the goal of this? So yeah, so then I'm gonna work on my book, let's say. And okay, my goal is to write the introduction, could be. So then your brain is set up to start that task
mhm,
with a lot of clarity, and
mm,
it will be prepared even ahead to say, you know what, I have to write the introduction. If you don't give that particular instruction, maybe you're like, sometimes that's why we're like, we don't even know where to start, or like, this. So, the more specific we can come, the easier is for your brain to start, like letting them think and get the ideas coming out of your mind.
mhm. So it's important to have that specific concept there. So you have that instruction and you know what you're doing, but also make it measurable in the sense of small enough to where 5 pages, yeah, that seems manageable. And because you're still in, you get to that flow state, you're going to go most likely surpass that 5 page benchmark that you put. But if you were to put something like write a chapter in 2 hours, that's going to be too extensive, and then you're going to feel defeated, most likely in the middle of it or at some point during that process.
Exactly, exactly. And in the beginning, you're like, you learn, how really to set up those clear goals for the task. And with time you learn to really like time it more. Even sometimes myself, let's say, I have my blocks of time where I write my posts for LinkedIn. And sometimes it takes me a little longer, sometimes I do it faster. And then, with time, you just learn on average how long it takes.
Hmm.
The things you just become good at it over time. But if you don't, it's always, like anything in life, it's finding this perfect balance. Because if you give too much time to do something, then you just like start wandering, because like then you lose time.
Hmm.
You have to give also, if you tell, I have to finish in 1 hour this, that little pressure also helps you to increase productivity. So
Hmm.
it's, managing the pressure to a certain level too.
Hmm. So speaking of productivity, that was going to be my next question. What 3 tips do you have for how someone can improve their productivity?
Well, with what, learning, being able to manage well your time is a huge productivity. It has a huge impact on productivity. I think that's really a foundational piece. Then another one, it's really about creating systems behind the things that you do. Anything that you do on a recurrent basis, and this even applies to tasks that you perform at the house, like cooking or cleaning. If you create a system where you follow certain steps and you do it the same way, this, it really helps in terms of productivity. Let's say, if you're studying, to create a system behind, how you go about to study for an exam. And if you have already a system, I start 1 week before and I split, the work in a certain way, having, that structure, having like your little system behind, is really helpful. That's a huge, huge. Usually, systems, what they create is really leverage.
Hmm.
Systems and technology, for sure. Today, technology is big, so it's another way to increase productivity.
So we have managing your time, creating systems, and what was the third one?
Well, technology.
Utilizing
using technology.
technology. Got it.
Yeah,
Got it.
using tech. Maybe if I add another one, it's really to manage your energy throughout the day.
Mm,
So knowing the times, this is also, a self-awareness work, just to understand, what are your peak times of productivity, and using, allocating important tasks during those times. Like if you're a morning person,
mm,
you should do your deep work in the morning.
hmm.
But I know people that they work very well at night, so it's really learning how you work better throughout the day.
So how do you find those peak energy times?
Well, I mean, it's not that you find them, is you just have to become aware, when you know that you are more focused, and when you feel more energy. In generally, most people is usually like in the morning.
Hmm.
I could say most people, they work better in the morning, but it's not really like, this is not like a magic rule. It's just really to understand. You can do an audit. One tool that you could do is to audit, throughout a week, how you're feeling in different parts of the day. How do you feel in the morning? How do you feel at noon? How do you feel in the afternoon and at night? And you can see if there are any patterns to identify when you have those peak times.
Okay, that makes sense. Auditing
Yeah,
it,
yeah,
looking, paying attention to those energy levels.
yeah, yeah, exactly.
So now that we're getting to the end of the podcast, I have three final questions, which I ask all the guests. These are over the topics of live, love, and grow. So the first question that I have for you is, what advice can you share about how to create a life that leaves a positive impact on the world?
Well, honestly, my best advice is really, and I think, if I think about it, I think this is the main cause of most of the problems that we have in our society, is that we have evolved to be to focus too much on external rather than internal.
Mm,
So I think the journey of any human being is really an inward journey.
mhm,
And when you can find yourself, develop that great self-awareness, um, you just shine, and then you just give that to the world. You find joy, you find happiness, you just want to help people, you become kind. It just becomes natural, but it's really, it's everything is inside you. It's not looking for anything external.
mhm. I love that. The second question I have is, what are some practical ways people can cultivate self-love?
Some practical ways to cultivate self-love: positive talk.
Mm,
And I think actually one of the greatest things that anybody can do is journaling,
mm, mhm,
because that helps a lot to with the journey of self-awareness. But you can use in journaling exercises to write good things about yourself. So I am organized, I am kind, I am compassionate. And when you write this, you're thinking about it too, and it's like you're brainwashing your mind with these ideas, with these thoughts, and then you start creating these connections in your brain with the idea. And one day, this idea starts just flowing really quick in your brain from one neuron to another neuron. You believe it, and then you are.
mhm,
So it's just that here again, it's all about the consistency. If you do that often enough, then you start seeing the results. If you do it, once a month, then, all these little practices, it's like little things that you do throughout your day, like journaling, but you have to be consistent with it to see the results.
Mhm. I love that. The last question that I have for you is, what is one actionable tip someone can do today to grow 1% better?
To grow 1% better. Well, I mean, I guess it depends what type of growth the person is achieving. But like I said before, I think really is just to understand better who you are. When you understand better who you are, your emotions, your thoughts, you just become better and better and better every day. So again, it's self-awareness. But if we come to like maybe like I would say maybe a more practical tip too, start every morning with a smile.
Mm,
It's a very good way to start your day with the practice of gratitude. And also something that really has big impact is when you have social interaction with somebody, again, smile to the person and look at them in their eyes, whether you're just buying something at the grocery or, you're walking on the street. Those things, they fill your life with, with joy, kindness, and compassion.
I love it. I love how all three of your answers were all connected in some way as well. How can the audience connect with you?
Well, the best way to connect with me is through LinkedIn. So they can send me a DM, or there is a link to book a free appointment, a free consultation with me as well on my profile.
And how can the audience support you on your journey?
The best way to support me is to check what I'm writing in my post and tell me what they think. I love to know, everybody's perspective.
Well, Alexandra, I just want to acknowledge you and appreciate you for coming on here. I know I learned a lot, and I know there's a lot of value in this conversation that we had. So I hope people take away from that all the tools and things that they can use to help improve their productivity and focus on time and just improve their mental state in general.
Wonderful. Thank you again for the invitation, Matt. Happy to be here.
Thank you for listening to today's episode of the Choose to Live, Love, and Grow podcast. I hope you took something away from this episode that you can implement today, just like I did. After doing some research, I found out that in order to be considered a 1% podcaster, you have to make it past episode 20. We are now officially past that. In honor of becoming a 1% podcaster and your continued support, I'm hosting my very first giveaway. It's my way of giving back to you for showing your support. Now, there are two different ways to enter to earn a $25 Amazon gift card. The first way is by leaving a review. Leave a review on Apple Podcasts or Spotify, take a screenshot, and send it in via my website, mattfindora.com. One lucky winner will be drawn from this group. The second way is by sharing this podcast on Instagram or LinkedIn and tag me in it. It can be a clip I've shared, your favorite episode, or the episode you're listening to right now. The second winner will be drawn from these individuals. The winners will be announced via email and on April 29th's podcast, so make sure you're following the podcast so you don't miss your name being called. And once again, thank you for supporting me and this podcast. Good luck. No matter what you choose to do, choose to live, love, and grow. Thank you, and have an outstanding day.